Hello everyone. So today I'm going to review Black Bag. For those of you who have watched my prior reviews, I'm going to say right now that I am working with a new format. I think that this new format is going to allow me to really get into the depths of why I liked the film and why I didn't, but it also allows you just to engage with the film as much as you want to and just get somebody else's opinion on whether or not they liked it. So without further ado, let's get into the details of Black Bag, which is the third collaboration between director Steven Soderbergh and screenwriter David Koepp. Black Bag is a sleek, modernized spy film that is intrigued with the psychology of spies, who use the phrase black bag to excuse any conversation they cannot discuss with their partners. So, here are some high level details. The runtime is an hour and 33 minutes, which I think is one of the biggest perks of this film, which is it's sleek, it's slim, it's fast. It doesn't linger too much on anything that's unnecessary. It just tells you what you need to know in order to get through. The director is Steven Soderbergh. I might be an outlier here because my favorite Steven Soderbergh films include his prior collaboration with Koepp, which is Kimmy. I really liked that film, and a lot of people didn't. I remember it came out on HBO, and people had a lot to say, and I just really liked it. I liked its exploration into agoraphobia, which I think, unfortunately, for the time that it was released, was a little bit too close to home for many people. And then I liked the film The Informant with Matt Damon. Again, a very controversial film that people thought was mid. I liked it. I think my family got like the DVD at Walmart for like $5, and so of course it was one of the few non-Christian films I had available to watch, so I kind of became obsessed with it. And then, of course, and I don't want to talk too much about this one, but I also became obsessed with Contagion, which I think is one of the best epidemic films or pandemic slash epidemic films I've ever watched. The cast is really star-studded. Here we have Michael Fassbender, Kate Blanchett, who recently came off a lot of hype with Tar. I actually, something really strange about me is I always conflate Kate Blanchett with Kate Winslet. Even though they're very different type of actors, they're still both very prestigious women. And so for some reason I get them conflated, but they're very different. So I'm going to give Kate Blanchett her stars, especially for playing Lydia Tarr in the very well-regarded Tar film. We have Marissa Abaya, who I know from industry. I watched that from season 1 when it first premiered. I was one of the first, but I love her in this film, and it actually kind of feels like a just smarter and more a more cohesive or a more put together version of her industry character. So it was really cool to see her in this role, particularly because people gave her a lot of shit for her participation in starring in that Amy Winehouse film, which everything that was wrong with that film had nothing to do with her. So Marissa Abaya, do your thing, girl. We stand for you. We have Regé-Jean Page, of course, of Bridgerton fame. He left the cast of Bridgerton, and a lot of people thought that was controversial. So these are one of the films and the projects that he's going into. I felt he did really well in the show, so I understand his decision to leave Bridgerton and maybe explore different options. But of course, everyone's always going to have their different opinions on how your career should go. Naomi Harris is also here, and of course, she has another spy film on her resume with James Bond. And then, of course, you have Tom Burke. So a really stacked cast, and you also have Pierce Brosnan making an appearance. So Steven Soderbergh was able to invite everybody to come, and everyone was like, yeah, we'll play, and they did what they needed to do. The ideal audience is a spy film lover that wants a closer examination of a spy's personal day-to-day life. So here's my non-spoiler review. Black Bag is an extremely competent film that asks key philosophical questions through the psychological dynamics of spies and relationships. Michael Fassbender and Kate Blanchett play high-level intelligence officers George and Catherine. George is informed by a fellow agent that there's a mole within their agency, and that George must weed out the mole with his highly regarded lie detection skills. The matter is complicated by the fact that one of the suspected moles is his wife. The movie then follows a cleanly woven tale about how marital trust is tested by the inherent secretive nature of an intelligence officer's work. I like how the film makes the mundane vital to the spy plot, and despite the lack of sexiness of, say, a partner going to a movie without you, the deep betrayal is still felt throughout the script and the actor's delivery. Early in the film, there's a well written dinner scene that gives a great cram session on the three main couples without feeling like exposition. The scene felt out of an Arthur Miller play. It made me aware of the dynamics between the couples that would play a role in the final scenes. The shots are very polished, making mundane data hacking feel edgy and anxiety inducing. Kate Blanchett is absolutely stunning, and I want to start a campaign to get her in more roles that require her to don a long brunette wig. It was beautiful. The wig wasn't put on all together that well, but overall, I really just want to see her in more movies that require her to have a long brunette wig. We also have Michael Fassbender, and he's the clear foundation of the film as the protagonist playing a role that requires him to hide emotion behind a stoic exterior. Yet the emotion always felt palpable. Marissa Abaya was also a pleasure to watch and managed to add a comedic edge to her banter with Tom Burke. While I love seeing Naomi Harris and Renee Jean Page, I felt that both their characters were slightly underwritten, although Naomi Harris definitely gets a lot more screen time, but they did so intentionally, and overall, I did like the way that they played together with the other two couples within the film. The film was good and it kept me engaged. However, I couldn't help but feel a bit empty at the end. The film was competent just like a black leather bag, reliable, sturdy, and great with any outfit, but nothing that would really get you to call somebody a fashionista or an innovator. So a great film, but not necessarily something that I'm like, you have to watch today. The same way I might have felt for a Dune 1 and Dune 2, or even Challengers, or even Wicked, right? Like a film like this is really cool filmmaking that you just have to watch while everybody else is paying attention. I think the style of film just tends to not really work for me. I feel like spy films give you a reason to, or films like this where it's like there's a mystery but we're gonna make sure you know by the end, it just kind of makes it so that there's not a lot of tension, at least as an audience member while watching the film, because you know in the last 5 minutes they're gonna give you everything that you need to know, which is exactly what happened. But for that, everything came really cohesively together, and I understand that making a film like this, despite it seeming short for an hour and 33 minutes, it really does take a lot of effort for every single part of the film to work well. So that is just speaks to volumes about Steven Soderbergh and everyone who participated in it, so that, to make the film feel so clean. So I give it a 7.5 out of 10. But honestly, nothing I wouldn't require you to like, you gotta go to the theater now and watch it. But it's just definitely a very competent film, and that's the best that I could say about it. There's not too much I could rag on it, except spoiler time. Here, I'm going to spoil about it. Just because there's something I have to say about my main gripe. And my main gripe is with the character Jimmy, who's played by Renee Jean Page. He's ultimately outed as the person who, like, created this whole entire tale. And while the film definitely makes his double crossing make sense in the sense that you could see how it fits in with the broader plot that we saw throughout the film, I felt that his character was intentionally underdeveloped in order for us to reach that conclusion. The film makes clear that it wants the audience to worry more about the health of the relationship between Catherine and George, played by Michael Fassbender and Kate Blanchett, than they do about the other characters who also play a very vital role into the outcome of the film. But essentially, here's what Jimmy's plan was, and why at the end of the film I just had to roll my eyes. Okay, here's Jimmy's plan. All right, stick with me here. So there's a digital weapon called Severus that can make a nuclear reactor collapse and cause the death of thousands of people. Think Chernobyl. So it'll do something like that, right? It'll cause a bad situation for anybody in the surrounding areas of that nuclear reactor. Jimmy and Pierce Morgan's character believe that if they get a nuclear reactor to collapse in Ukraine, it will stop the nuclear reactor Severus to Russia. They could cause a nuclear reactor to collapse in Russia, which will stop the war in Ukraine. Are you following me here, right? So they're basically saying if we kill a couple thousand Russians, that's going to end the Ukrainian war. And I know immediately right now, a lot of people are thinking what I was thinking, like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, so they orchestrate to get Severus to a member of Russia's opposition party who will detonate the weapon at the right time. So anyway, this idea just feels so wild to me because this feels like an escalation, right? Putin is out here saying that Ukraine was the initial aggressor in the war. So imagine what he could justify with the death of thousands of Russians. This is just a very dumb and bad idea. And of course, the show does try to ask that philosophical question. If you could kill thousands of people and know that it will save hundreds of thousands or more people in the future, would you do it? And it's like, sure, cool, maybe. But that's a completely different situation than what Renee Jean Page is doing, which is basically killing a bunch of Russians and then basically giving Putin the leverage to basically start a full scale war against Western Europe. Right? Like, what are we talking about? Either way, I do love when a film does confront politics straight on. I feel like there's been a lot of like anti politics in my art or in my movies or in my TV shows as of late, and I understand that because movies and TV shows, especially in this era where it feels like, Jesus, what is going on when it comes to most politics around the world, it still is something to that is important that film does have a large impact on. And in the future, when people are going to ask like what were people thinking about the Russian Ukrainian war, well, this film will definitely be a part of the lexicon in terms of allowing people to understand that there was a sentiment that the war should stop. It's gone on for way too long, and that people abstractly, I want people of the world to know I think the average person is not okay with killing a bunch of Russians at this point, but still, um, yeah, I think that these types of films that address politics that are happening contemporaneously are very important for giving people in the future an idea of what the general population was thinking. I also just didn't think the film gave enough reason for Jimmy to be disinvested in the Russian-Ukrainian war. I mean, there were so many reasons they could give. Maybe Jimmy has family in Ukraine that he's currently hosting, and he's just like, I want y'all back. I want y'all back at your home or something like that. Or maybe we could see more of the relationship between Pierce Brosnan character and Jimmy, so that way we understand why they came to this idea in the first place. Either way, great film. But yeah, that concept just had me messed up, so I had to speak life into it because I thought that was really a wild logical steps to get to the point of thinking that killing Russians would stop the Russian-Ukrainian war. Regardless, I hope you go to your local movie theater because I love my movies and I like that they keep on showing them in the theaters, and that's not going to continue happening unless more people go to the theater, so please go. And without further ado, that was Strategic Delusion and my review of Black Bag.